All right, Bryce Larson back with me here. Bryce, talking about the best quarterback in the state of Utah. With full respect to Bryson Barnes, as who we think is going to be starting. Shout out the former Utah Ute who had some nice legendary moments. Respect to Weber State and respect to Southern Utah and Utah Tech. To me, this is Jake Retzlaff and Devon Dampier are the two guys that are here. Dampier actually has better Heisman odds than Jake Retzlaff. Plus 8,000 to plus 12,000. I will say right away, like that to me makes sense. When you look at, we'll talk about who's better in a moment. When you look at what it takes to win the Heisman Trophy, I see a lot more of those traits in Devon Dampier than Jake Retzlaff.
You know what's crazy? I was also looking into some of the Heisman numbers for guys that were finalists this past year, and I was wondering why Kyle McCord out of Syracuse wasn't considered to be one of those guys. He set multiple ACC records, threw for like 4,700 yards, over 30 touchdowns, and only had I believe single digit interceptions. So the one thing that I would say is that you have to have that success of your football team in order to be considered a Heisman finalist. So it's almost like it's a team trophy, but also you've got to make those big time plays as well. So I don't know. I was just a little bit shocked with I wanted to bring that Kyle McCord point up a little bit because those were gaudy numbers, but there was no Heisman hype surrounding that guy. So it's not just the numbers. It's you got to have the flash. And it feels like Devon Dampier might have that opportunity to bring the flash a little bit more.
He definitely does. Just his game, the way they play. If you show anyone Devon Dampier's highlight tape versus Jake Retzlaff's highlight tape. And Jake Retzlaff is a good player. We'll talk about who we think the best quarterback in the state is in a moment. But there's no question watching Devon Dampier play is just more fun when you look at how, like, there's a play against Auburn, I think it is. Maybe it was Arizona. He gets out of like 8 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and makes something out of nothing. It's just like, it's literally backyard football at times. He's truly a incredible and tremendous athlete. And you're right, when the wins matter. Like, as soon as you brought up Kyle McCord being a Heisman contender, you know what I thought was? Yeah, but he lost to Stanford. Like, they had bad losses. And that's where you're like, that's where this absolutely plays a role. Dillon Gabriel got to, and he had a good year last year. Dillon Gabriel, he's really good. I don't know if he was better than, like, I think he might have finished higher in the voting than Cam Ward, which, like, to me is just insane. And I could be wrong on that, but like, there are a lot of other guys I looked at last year and was just like, I think they're better than what Dillon Gabriel has done, but his team was the best. So he got to be there. So that's where Dampier, I don't think Utah is going to go undefeated. It's always going to be harder for a non-Big Ten SEC team to get here. Genty did it, but they went undefeated at Boise State. He had a record-setting season. So it's going to take a lot from Dampier. So now we get to this question. Who is the best quarterback in the state of Utah? And as we sit here today, I think you have to say it's Jake Retzlaff. He is a proven commodity. He had over 3,000 total yards if you combine his rushing as well as his passing stats. But hey, he did throw 12 interceptions, 20 touchdowns too. So he's got a little bit of a turnover problem too. As we sit here today, Jake Retzlaff is the best QB in the state. But Bryce, I think by the end of the year, we're going to be saying it's Devon Dampier.
There's a chance that we could be doing that. You brought this point up earlier in the podcast. The one question I have the most is how much will Kyle Whittingham let them open it up? Mm-hmm. What is the offense going to look like? Because if he allows them to open it up and they're not really worried about him getting hurt like you've seen in past seasons with Utah quarterbacks, allowing him to get out and run, allowing him to use his God-given talents to be able to make plays happen with his feet, and they throw caution out the door, yeah, he could be the best quarterback in the state of Utah. But I think you're correct in saying that right now we've seen it from Jake Retzlaff at this level. We know he's capable of that, and right now you have to go with Jake Retzlaff.
There's players like DeQuan Finn that come to mind. He was a baller. I think it was a Toledo in the MAC. He went to Baylor. Everyone thought he was going to be the guy, and he fizzled out after like 4 games, and they were at their best with Sawyer Robertson under center. Like, that's something that I bears in mind of, like, I think that Devon Dampier is going to be a star. I think he's going to be really good at Utah, but until he proves he's ready for P4 football, I have to give it to Jake Retzlaff and say he's done it here too. And I don't think Jake is one of the 5-10 best quarterbacks in college football, but he's a really good quarterback who helped this BYU team have a much better season than anyone thought they would. And I think he's another guy that will improve. And it is kind of crazy that both these guys ended up with the same number of turnovers too last year with that 12
same exact completion percentage too.
Oh, wow.
59.7.
Yeah, so that's where it's crazy. But so then I'll talk about, I said, I think at the end of the year, Dampier will be better. So why is that? Well, I do think there will be a little bit of an adjustment from, Jason Beck's offense, where last year, if you look at what they did, fourth best offense in yards per game, they were 484 per game. Even if that drops off, still not sure if it's going to drop off by 100 yards per game. That's what it would be to get to where BYU was. BYU last year with Retzlaff was 59 at 392 yards per game. I believe Dampier's ability to buy time, escape the pocket, is going to allow him to extend and make more plays than Jake Retzlaff, who can run a little bit. I think it was over 400 yards rushing last year. So he can run, can move, but he's also got sacks several times. He is not the same as escapability that Dampier has. Now, Retzlaff is more accurate, I would say, but that's where I do think that escapability, and Dampier is going to put Big 12 defenses on skate still. When you have a play figured out as a defense, the one thing that usually burns a defense when they predict the play correctly is the quarterback who can escape something. That's what Dampier can do. I do believe he's going to hone in on his accuracy to even where I think Retzlaff will be better than him at that even next year. I think it's going to be a close gap, and with Dampier's ability to use his legs honestly better than maybe any returning quarterback in the country, that's where I think the numbers, the game, the moments that he's going to have is what I think will lead to him to surpassing Jake Retzlaff as the best quarterback in the state of Utah.
The other thing that you need to take into account here is the decision making from Jake Retzlaff, and then also when they get down into the goal line and in red zone situations for that BYU offense. Last year, Jake Retzlaff for some reason had issues throwing the fade. Multiple interceptions on the goal line fade. If you are a top 10, top 20 quarterback in all of college football, you got to be able to throw the goal line fade. So I want to see if Jake Retzlaff can improve in a couple of different areas. His accuracy on some of the throws, his decision making, because he's still, look, that was one of the biggest steps that he took last year. Still could take another step in decision making and just getting that ball out a little bit quicker. And then, of course, not putting it in harm's way. I think whoever could do that better, because so many games come down to turnovers on the offensive side, as Utah knows so well a season ago, that if you can take care of the football, you're going to be just fine. And I think whoever takes care of the football better next season will probably end up being the better quarterback.
I agree with that completely. We'll see who has less interceptions. Is Dampier to be a Heisman guy? Like you mentioned, it would take him cutting that interception level in half. And now that BYU has a target on their back, is Retzlaff going to be able to cut that in half too? Both guys have their work cut out for them, but both of them capable of leading their teams to big things in 2025. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awards, PrizePicks has made it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game, where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. That's right. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for Mahomes' passing yards. What I love most, safe withdrawals and fast withdrawals too. When I win my cash in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie Winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, head over and run your game today.